Well, I'm back, and it's time for another sprint zone. It's March, it's a super nice day, and we got lots of people that are coming out to play. So let's get the show on the road. So we're a little bit early here. Um, I like to start a little bit early to showcase some of the talent that may not make it into the selection. So looking behind us, we can see Mike Wita, who hasn't been out in a while. And I should state that there's lots of celebrity and old guard that have come back to join us. See Dean off there into the sidewalk a little bit. There's Matthew Michaels is way back there. Special celebrity guest up front would be Alfred, etc., etc. So this is a really epic day. A lot of riders, lots of color. Everybody's happy. Big men are around, and there's excitement, just to be out in a spring day. So I stop here to make certain that the camera's actually going. I wasn't really certain, but it gets a good shot of the group, and now it's time for me to go through the group and assert myself at the place to which I think I belong, which is not really in the back. I mean, the back is nice because there's plenty of draft, but if a move goes up the road, it's not a good thing. And besides, the camera view from the rear isn't as good, so using the camera and able to turn around, it's much better. So Byron and Alfred are up front, and they're throwing down some pretty good speed even before we actually get to the sprint zone. I'm not in any difficulty, but looking at some of the wattage numbers, it's like, wow, pretty early. So there we see some of the legend. Matthew Michaels this week, no fluffy jacket, no number on the helmet. He is out to redeem himself from that performance that occurred last weekend, which was kind of unfortunate, but probably a wake-up call. Looking fit and ready to rumble. Got Marcelo there, nice kit, looking pretty fit. Everybody is apparently over the winter have been doing a lot of training, and it's showing in how strong people are riding just this early. And coming into the sprint zone, people are going not super hard, good enough to get you a warm up, but harder than I would have liked at this point. But I'm not going to complain because I'm just a lazy rider. At this point, we cross the start finish line and the game is afoot. Looking back there, we see Isla still on the old bike that I actually think is going to be faster than her new bike, but we won't digress on that until we actually see that bike out in battle. Up front, people are having a good time. People aren't quite strung out yet, and it's just pretty pedestrian, decent wattage, but people are just getting kind of warmed up and just kind of feeling the flow. I guess technically this really isn't the start of the sprint zone, but by the pace that we're actually keeping, it kind of feels like it is. With Byron, even though he's on that gravel bike, still able to put down some serious wattage. I don't think he knows what kind of damage he's doing to the back, but I am certain that if I'm feeling a little discomfort, a lot of other people are too. So looking in front of me, I see Scott hasn't been around in a while, but it's good to see that he has returned. And of course, look at the Union Jack being sported by Ian. Lots of pride there. Good shot of Dean and Matthew, triathlete legends, and it's going to be a good one. I am stoked just to see this many people out. Oh, we see Kent Winters, Mike Wita, Greg wearing something a little different this time. So Byron gives me the thumbs up, camera's going, and it is game time. Good shot of Alfred there on his new S-Works, looking around. He hasn't been around in many years, and I don't think he's ever made one of the videos, but he had come out on this ride many years ago, and his sprint was extraordinary even back in the day. Looking back, Ian has gotten himself good position. Isla has good position, and up front, it is Greg throwing it down, getting the party started a little bit early. Now, I was thinking to myself, this is a little harder than I really wanted to go this early. With this many big men, I figured we should be easing up, but the excitement is too much for some. and we just have to go out and burn off some of that adrenaline and maybe string things out to keep it safer. Still want to be cognizant of these corners up here. We don't want to start the whole thing when we're going into those things at 30 plus miles an hour, especially after the winter when there's possibilities of sand and other debris on the road. That being said, Alfred at the front, coming through and taking over for Greg. And since Greg has set the tempo, I know Alfred isn't going to do anything less. So the game is being upped, the ante being raised every second. Greg coming up again, matching Alfred's effort in a show perhaps of defiance, or we remember you from the old days, Alfred, but what do you have now? Are you worthy? Metal is to be tested today, as we shall see. So, Alfred still holding his own up there. I'm drifting back. There's the Union Jack, and looking behind, Kent Winter's looking strong. Got his armor pulled down because it is a warm day. Isla has assumed excellent position. I mean, if you're going to be there and try to be there for the selection, that's where you want to be. The draft isn't quite as good there, but hey, you'll be there to cover any moves. Greg falls in behind me. Alfred's up front, and this is where some of the damage is beginning to occur. You could see here that we got a gap, and I did not really realize that we were actually getting a gap here. So, I mean, Ian's actually would be an excellent teammate actually blocking, because those behind probably wouldn't realize it. And if he's not controlling, I would probably have assumed the position in the back, because they are big men. Big men sitting behind that are easily able to close these gaps. And there's no reason for the minnows to be up front working that hard. And we've got Dean back there. We've got Matthew Michaels. We've got Byron. Why in heaven would you take up the mantle when there's really no need to? You could drift back and get yourself some shelter. Anyway, Alfred got a little bit of gap on me. I didn't want to go around those corners too fast. And it looked like Alfred was trying to pull a little cheeky TTH move by getting some of the draft off of some of that traffic. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm in no man's land. And I didn't really want to have to go back to the pack, and I didn't really want to have to go bring Alfred back, but I thought, okay, this might be a free ride. I'll ride Alfred's coattail for a little bit, and at least when the group does, if they do catch us, when I'm pretty certain that they will, I'll at least get some sort of respite. So looking behind, yeah, there's a good gap there. And if I was feeling like Super, or Alfred was feeling like Super, and the big men weren't back there, this would be game over. This is a dangerous move to allow to occur. If it weren't for the big men, Kerry Tassa back there, old school, Matthew Michaels and Byron, we pretty much would have checked out at this point. So I'm sitting in behind Alfred, and I wish I could have gone by to give him some assistance. But his FTP, as we discussed, is 100 watts more than mine. So I would have gone up there and just blown up. And as we can see, the chase has been taken up. And I believe it is Kerry Tassa, who hasn't been around in a while, taking up the responsibility to bring us back. Alfred looking really comfortable in arrow position. I'm pushing some pretty decent wattage just behind, and here's the big move of the day. And let's pause this and take a look and see what has occurred here. And what has occurred is that no one saw this coming. No one is on Matthew's wheel, and this is a big mistake. Byron, it looks like maybe up front doing some work, caught off guard, but the people that were back there, someone should have pulled into a slipstream. Anyway, we continue. So, Matthew goes up the front, and he gives that little look over his shoulder saying, "Are you coming? Who wants to join me?" And I like that cue. It's a friendly cue. It wasn't a serious attack. I wish I could have gone. Now, Byron has seen this, and he knows a dangerous move when he sees it. So I'm trying to get on Byron's wheel, and I'm screaming. I'm looking at this, over 300 watts just to sit in his wheel. And I hadn't ridden in a couple of days. I'd been doing some like squats and all that stuff, and I strained my back doing something. So I was like not in the shape that I would like to have been. My legs were fresh, but they were freaking screaming at me at this point. And so I was just happy to try to like to sit in, but this was going to be like too much, too much. And Byron has a super aero position. And from those of you who follow aerodynamics, this is good because that hole in the drops is not as aero as this particular position. So Byron is doing a good job. I mean, to bring back Matthew and Alfred, this is heroic. And this is the point where I basically say, like, no mas. Got nothing, and I'm sitting in pretty much no man's land as I watch them go up the hill. I was hoping, well, maybe these are big guys. Maybe I can pull them back on the hill and get a little bit of ground on them. But no. Legs weren't having it. Not today, not today, not today. So sitting in no man's land, watching people go, and I look and I see people behind, and there's like nothing. It's like, what just happened there? And that just shows how strong Byron, Alfred, and Matthew are when they want to make the attack. So here's a surprise. Marcelo leaps from the group, not wanting any help coming up, and comes blowing by me. There isn't the look of, hey, come with me that Matthew gave. It is just straight away going to chase. So I throw down some wattage and I'm like, okay, this will be a free ride, and maybe if I can recover, we can work together, and there's no hope of bringing these guys back, but maybe we can keep the hounds at bay, which I would consider an accomplishment today. So Marcelo is riding super strong, and he flicks the elbow, and I do not come around right here for one big reason, and that reason is he did not slow down. I'm like, this is not happening. That is not how a pace line works. If you want me to come around, I don't want to accelerate only to have to slow down again because the pace he was keeping was like just really high. So I think I communicate that. He slows down a little bit, and at some point I do take over. Still tired because it was a pretty good effort to pull Alfred back, a little bit anaerobic and sitting out there in no man's land. So looking at my wattage here, 190, maybe 200, 180 watts. Not throwing down anything serious, but I was tired. So clearly Marcelo's got plenty of fight, and he goes to the front and he throws it down and gets us another 2 miles an hour or so. Once again, another super aero position. Man, he has learned a lot over the last couple of weeks. Much better cadence, really good position, nice move, not working too hard, and came across the gap nicely. So we're holding everybody off at this point. I can't see who's back there. Maybe that's Kent, Dean. They're just like too far back. And at this point, who cares? They probably will recognize themselves, but we have kept away. And with the group not working together, there's no way they're going to bring us back. I mean, the strongest men are up the road. We're working together. There's no way you're going to bring us back. You would have been better to sit back a little bit and maybe wait and get organized. But I'm happy to see that because we're staying away and making ground here. So Marcelo sitting in a nice position. That is the windward direction. So he has nice draft position, resting, and we are going at a pretty decent clip. Looking at my wattage, 180 to maybe 240 in there. And I'm pretty much doing all I can. I'm thinking to myself when I was doing this, I should be able to put out more wattage than this. But because of that injury last week, my legs being stiff, I could just feel lactic acid just searing through. Yeah, and it looks like probably coming through the summer, I'm going to need to have some sort of extra advantage. I'm looking at some of the other people in the event here. Aero helmets, deep dish 60, 55 millimeter aero wheels, and that's wattage. And that's wattage I'm going to need because everybody's strong. Anyway, Marcelo takes over. Once again, looking strong. I'm sitting in. At this point, it's pretty much game over for everybody unless, of course, somebody leaps forward. So to my surprise, Dean didn't figure anywhere in here at this point. Kerry hadn't been riding for a while. There's Kent back there, Mike Wita, and Greg. Strong people, if they had gotten organized, might have been able to like bring us back. And maybe they made some ground on us, but you can see they're just like falling away. So I take over for this like final push up the hill. I figure I can just like go anaerobic at this point, just to make certain that nobody's gonna catch us, and just to put enough force in there that it keeps Marcelo honest. But he's riding really strong, and I think this is the ride that I'm mentally going to move him into the GC contender category versus one of the guys that would not be there. We'll see if tactically he's able to stay with the big men in subsequent weeks, but clearly the effort that he's shown today, he could have been there. And if he'd gotten on the wheel of either Byron or Matthew at some point, that'd have been good. And I might not have been able to like catch at that point. In fact, I wouldn't have been because, but maybe with a little more, people in front of me, the draft is bigger. But I digress. Anyway, we crest the hill. Nice little almost fist bump. A little bit too far away, but the intent is there. Super good effort by Marcelo. Definitely rode stronger than me on this day. So it's going to be exciting, and he's definitely going to be one to watch in future weeks. So cruising up here, life is good. You can see how far the winners are. I have no idea who took that one. I'm going to guess out of the three, strongest would be Byron, second would be Matthew, third would be Alfred. But who knows? Yeah. But a good time was had by all. Maybe someone will comment when I post, and we'll see what the video shows or what they have to say about who actually won. In fact, I don't even think I asked at that point. So here I am. Most people turn around early. At this point, I'm like gassed, and I'm mentally thinking to myself, if the group drops me and they leave me and I don't catch them, oh good, because I don't have to suffer anymore. And for those people who think it's easy up there and that we aren't suffering, there's suffering going on. I mean, the pain cave is a real thing, and maybe that's what's separating the GC men, the people that are willing to dig down a little bit, suffer, and enjoy some success versus those people who just give up and look around for like somebody else to do the work. So here comes Kent, looking strong. Obviously, he's got plenty of upper body. Not certain what he's doing as far as training or whatever, but looking at his equipment, some aero wheels and an aero bike would definitely help. Yeah, because he's certainly strong. Anyway, a good time was had by all, and we will see you guys next week for the next edition of the Sprint Zone.